Whoever built the bench made it with 3 joined legs, 3 basically modules. This was the one on the far right. I want to have the legs so that when I join this with the other bench legs, this 2x8 will act as a brace for the bottom shelf to be put on. They'll all be at the same height, and it gives me something to slide things onto to keep them out of the way and out from underfoot. I'm going to make the top of the bench out of 4 2x8s. 2x8s are actually 7 1/4 inches across once they've been milled down to size. So that ends up with a top that's 29 inches across. 2x8s are 1.5 inches thick. I'm going to have a sandwich of 2x8s across the top of it, 3 inches thick. That means I need to take these down to 26 inches. This is one of those times when I would love to be able to ask one of you guys to come over and hold the other end of the tape. Pick the straightest edge because we're working with salvage lumber and it is somewhat erratic. Mark that length. Now I have it all set up to cut it to set the width of the top of the bench. Measure twice, cut once. These are 34.5. 34.5. You don't want to end up with one leg a little bit shorter than the other or a little bit longer. Longer, pain in the butt. Shorter, real serious problem. Thirty-four and a half. 34.5. Yep. I've been building things a long time, and I've made my share of mistakes. One of the things that I try never to do again is looking at the tape, reading the number 34.5. I always try and measure from left to right. But occasionally end up measuring from right to left. And you look at the number and go 34.5 and mark it on the wrong side. Everything ends up an inch short. $34.5. Seems like a waste of time and makes everything go much slower having to double measure everything. But cut one of these puppies off and have it be an inch too short, and all of a sudden you have to redesign the whole bench and cut everything down by an inch, or go and try and find another 2x8. Neither one of those prospects is very good. Much simpler and easier just to measure it twice. I'm I'm using this Black & Decker Workmate. It's a nice little bench. It makes a pretty good sawhorse for power sawing. Sucks for hand sawing. It's too wobbly. But for power sawing, it actually works pretty good. One thing I don't want to have happen is because this is a little shaky, running a power saw on this baby, if it catches and twists, it'll kick the part right off the top of it. Then you have the added risk of a power saw running in your hand, and because humans are humans, when something starts to slip out of your grip, you grab tighter. When you're doing that with a skill saw, the thing you've got your hand on is the trigger, and you just hang on. That means that this saw is running, it's in a piece of wood, it's kicked, and now it has the opportunity to come popping out of that thing, skitter across the back of that log and right down your leg. For purposes of this demonstration, I have it unplugged. Cover your ears. Hearing protection is not required, but it is recommended. I wear hearing aids today because I didn't wear my hearing protection when I was a young man. May look a little goofy. But hearing protection means you don't have to spend $3,000 buying a set of little battery-operated devices so you can hear again. Cover your ears. Here we go. That's the thing you have to be careful of. That last little bit when I was cutting, you notice how it caught and jerked? Power saws are very unforgiving. They never do it mean, and they don't hate you, but cutting your finger off doesn't mean a damn thing to them. Now you may be asking yourself, now wait a minute. Old Sneelock's all about the old tools, right? Why isn't he cutting that off with a handsaw? No, actually I could. I kind of like my handsaws though. This is rough lumber. It's got knots and bits of nail and pieces of dirt embedded in it. All kinds of things. That carbide blade on the power saw doesn't even slow down when it hits a nail. It goes right on through it. If I took one of my favorite old Distons and ran through a nail, good chance I'll break a tooth off If nothing else, I'll dull it pretty good. Power tools have their uses, and this is one of them. Now I have to pop off these sections of 2x8 that are nailed on here with 5 nails apiece. Now I have to knock off these 2 sections of 2x8 that are nailed on here with 5 big nails apiece. For that I have a special little tool. This short pry bar has a slugging end on it. Take my hammer, drive it down through. Drop it on the floor. Take my inconsiderable weight, pop it right off. I'm going to take the crowbar and off it comes. Pretty as you please. This one's going to be a little difficult. One of the fun things about working with somebody else's business, well, somebody else's construction, you never really knew what they were doing. They had a reason for everything they did, I'm sure. But they weren't thinking about me taking it apart, they were thinking about it staying together. They didn't have a nail gun, but they obviously thought more is better. Now before somebody says, Dave, you're going to step on a nail doing that. You're right. It does increase the risk of stepping on a nail by doing it that way, but if I'm careful, and I'm trying to be, I step on the handle where the nails aren't. I managed to save the part that I wanted, which was the leg. These pieces that I broke off were going to be scrapped. One of the problems with a wobbly workmate, things tend to crawl around on you, and you end up dropping off on the floor. So sometimes it's easier just to take them off, put them someplace else. Looks like driving those big nails, the guy was having a little trouble because they're kinked and wobbled all over the place. That means that they're going to come out in a bunch of different directions. Now I could pull them with a hammer. In a pinch, if you don't have a crowbar, rather than trying to pull the nail out this way, which means that you lose all this leverage, you put the hammer up against the shank of the nail and roll it sideways. You don't get as much travel out of it, but it multiplies the leverage on the hammer. It makes it so you can pull the nail easier. End up with the fish hook. Kind of big for the bluegill that I usually go after, but I suppose if you were in a pinch. But because I am Old Sneelock the tool guy, I have a nice big crowbar. Multiplies my leverage by a whole lot. And makes it so that I don't have to bend over. Believe it or not, bending over is not that much fun for me anymore. And working on my knees is even less fun. So this nice long crowbar means that they come out without a fuss at all. Even when they have the end crimped over, they're still coming out of there. If you're going to be in the wood salvaging business, a good crowbar is a must.